The Texas sun hung like a brass coin in the cloudless sky, burning everything it touched. Jackson Reeves had been riding fence lines since before dawn, checking water troughs that were running dangerously low. 8 years of drought. 8 years of loss. 8 years of waking up alone in a house that used to echo with laughter. He was 45 years old and felt every year of it in his bones. Easy, Rusty. He patted his horse's neck as they approached Cottonwood Creek. Let's check the north section and head back. The creek was barely a trickle now. What used to run deep enough for swimming was nothing but cracked mud and scattered rocks. Jack dismounted his boots, crunching on grass that should have been green this time of year. The wind carried the scent of dust and dead mesquite. That's when he heard it. A sound that made his blood freeze. A sound no man should ever hear in the middle of nowhere. A baby crying. Jack's first thought was that the heat had finally broken his mind. He'd been out here too long, the sun playing tricks on a brain that had spent 8 years trying to forget, trying to unhear the sound of a 3-year-old boy calling for his papa while flames devoured their home. But the cry came again, weak, desperate, dying. 20 feet from the creek bed, half hidden in the tall grass, sat a wooden crate, the kind used for shipping supplies from back east. And it was moving. Sweet Jesus. Jack ran. His heart pounded before his mind could catch up with what his eyes were seeing. A small fist punched through the slats of the crate, then another. Then that sound again, that terrible sound that would haunt him for the rest of his days. He fell to his knees and tore at the wooden slats with his bare hands. Splinters dug into his palms, but he didn't feel them. All he could see was that tiny fist still reaching, still fighting. The lid came off. Inside was a baby girl, maybe 8 or 9 months old. Her skin was red and blistered from the sun. Her lips were cracked and bleeding. Her eyes were barely open. But when she saw Jack's face looking down at her, she reached up with both arms and whispered one word that shattered his soul. Mama. For one terrible moment, Jack was back in that burning house 8 years ago, his son Ethan reaching for him through the flames, calling for him. Papa, Papa. And Jack couldn't get to him. The roof collapsed and took everything he loved with it, his wife Melissa, his boy, his reason for living. But this baby was alive. This baby was reaching for him. This baby needed him. I got you, little one. His voice cracked as he lifted her from that wooden coffin. She weighed almost nothing. I got you now. The baby's skin was burning hot against his chest. Her breathing was shallow fast like a bird's. She was dying of heat and thirst. And Jack knew he had maybe an hour to get her help before it was too late. He mounted Rusty so fast the horse startled. Go, Jack kicked hard. Run like you ain't never run before. Rusty seemed to understand. The old horse found strength he hadn't shown in years galloping across the dry prairie toward town. Jack pressed the baby against his chest, shielding her from the sun with his body, his hat, anything he could. Stay with me, sweetheart. Just stay with me. The baby's eyes fluttered. Her tiny hand gripped his shirt like she was holding on to life itself. That's it. That's my girl. You keep fighting. The ride to Silver Creek was the longest 15 minutes of Jack's life. Every second felt like an hour. Every time the baby went quiet, his heart stopped until he felt her breathing again. Please, God. It was the first prayer he'd spoken in 8 years. Don't take her too. Please, not this one. Main Street was nearly empty in the midday heat. Folks had sense enough to stay inside when the sun was this brutal. But Jack didn't slow down. He rode straight up the wooden sidewalk, scattering the few people who were out, and jumped off Rusty right in front of Dr. Benjamin Carter's office. Doctor. He kicked the door open. Dr. Carter, I need you now. Dr. Benjamin Carter looked up from his desk coffee cup, frozen halfway to his lips. He was a gray-haired man with kind eyes and steady hands. In 30 years of practice, he'd seen plenty of emergencies. But the sight of Jack Reeves bursting through his door with a dying baby made even him go pale. Good Lord, Jack, what happened? Found her in a crate by Cottonwood Creek. Jack was already laying the baby on the examination table. She's been out in the sun. I don't know how long. She's burning up, Doc. You got to help her." Dr. Carter moved fast. He grabbed his stethoscope, checked the baby's heart, her breathing, her temperature. His face grew grimmer with every second. "She's severely dehydrated. Heat stroke. Her body temperature is dangerously high." He looked at Jack. "You found her in a crate?" "Yes, sir. Nailed shut. Someone left her there to die." Dr. Carter's jaw tightened. What kind of monster does that to a child? That's what I aim to find out. Jack's voice was steady, but his eyes were wet. "But right now, I need to know one thing. Is she going to live?" Dr. Carter was quiet for a long moment. The baby whimpered on the table, her small body fighting with everything it had. "She's a fighter," the doctor finally said. "I've never seen a baby this far gone still breathing. But I won't lie to you, Jack. The next few hours will tell. She needs constant care, cool water, small amounts, rest. And someone watching her every minute. I ain't leaving her. Jack, you can't stay here all night. I said I ain't leaving her, Doc." Jack's voice broke. "I already let one child die when I should have saved him. I ain't doing that again. Not ever again, Doctor." Carter studied the cowboy's face. He'd known Jack for years. Watched him shut down after the fire. Watched him build walls so high nobody could climb them. But right now, looking at Jack with a dying baby, Dr. Carter saw something he thought was gone forever. Hope. "All right," the doctor said quietly. "Then let's get to work." The next 3 hours were a battle. Dr. Carter worked with the focused intensity of a man fighting death itself. Jack stayed by the baby's side, dripping cool water onto her cracked lips, whispering words of comfort, even though she probably couldn't hear them. "You're going to be okay, little one. I promise. You just keep fighting." The baby's fever started to drop around the second hour. Her breathing steadied. The angry red of her sunburned skin began to fade. And when she finally opened her eyes, really opened them and looked at Jack, something passed between them that neither could explain. She smiled. It was just a tiny upturn of her lips, barely there, but it was real. "Well, I'll be." Dr. Carter shook his head in amazement. "I've been doing this for 30 years, and I've never seen anything like it. A few hours ago, she was knocking on death's door. Now look at her." Jack couldn't speak. His throat was too tight. He just stared at that little smile and felt something crack open in his chest that had been frozen solid for 8 years. "She's going to need round-the-clock care for the next few days." Dr. Carter continued, "Feeding every 2 hours, keeping her cool, watching for fever. I can help during the day, but I have other patients. You're going to need someone else to help you." Jack nodded. "I'll figure it out." "No, you won't." A woman's voice came from the doorway. "You'll accept help when it's offered, Jack Reeves, like any sensible person would." Jack turned to see Sarah Bennett standing in the doorway. She was the school teacher, widow, kept to herself mostly. Jack had seen her around town, but never spoken more than a few words to her. She was pretty in a quiet way, with auburn hair and warm brown eyes that looked like they'd seen their share of sorrow. Miss Bennett. Jack tipped his hat. "I appreciate the offer, but this ain't your concern. A baby left to die isn't my concern." Sarah stepped into the room, her eyes fixed on the tiny girl on the table. "What kind of woman would I be if I walked away from that?" She moved closer to the baby, and something in her face changed. Her breath caught. Her hand flew to her throat. For just a moment she looked like she might run. "Miss Bennett." Dr. Carter frowned. "Are you all right?" Sarah didn't answer. She was staring at the baby with an expression that Jack recognized all too well. It was grief, raw, fresh, bleeding. "I had a daughter," Sarah whispered. "She died before she was a year old. Fever took her." She finally looked at Jack. "I swore I'd never hold another baby again. The pain was too much." Jack understood. God help him. He understood completely. "Then don't stay," he said quietly. "I won't think less of you. Some wounds don't heal." Sarah was silent for a long moment. The baby made a soft cooing sound and reached toward her, those tiny fingers stretching out, asking for comfort. "May I?" Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. Jack nodded. Sarah reached down and lifted the baby into her arms. The moment she did, something changed. The baby, who had been restless and fussy, immediately calmed. Her whimpering stopped. Her tiny hand wrapped around Sarah's finger and held on tight. "Oh." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "Oh, sweetheart." The baby looked up at her with those big blue eyes and made a sound that broke everyone's heart. "Ma, Ma," Sarah sobbed just once. Then she pulled herself together with visible effort and looked at Jack. "I'm staying," she said firmly. "Whatever this child needs, I'm staying." By that evening, word had spread through Silver Creek about Jack's discovery. Folks came by Dr. Carter's office to peer through the window, whispering to each other about the abandoned baby and the unlikely pair caring for her. "That ain't right," said Martha Jenkins, the baker's wife, loud enough for half the street to hear. "A single man and a single woman playing house with a baby that ain't theirs. What will people think? People should think about that poor child's welfare," Dr. Carter shot back, stepping outside to confront the gossips, not about wagging their tongues. But the whispers continued. Inside, Jack sat in a wooden chair next to the baby's makeshift crib, watching Sarah feed her from a bottle. The baby was drinking hungrily now, her small hands gripping the bottle like she was afraid it might disappear. "She's going to need a name," Sarah said quietly. "We can't keep calling her the baby." "Ain't our place to name her," Jack said. "She belongs to someone. Someone who left her in a crate to die." Sarah's voice sharpened. "She doesn't belong to them anymore. She belongs to whoever loves her." Jack was quiet for a long moment. "What do you want to call her?" Sarah looked down at the baby, who had finished her bottle and was now fighting sleep. Her eyes drifting closed, then snapping open again like she was afraid to miss anything. "Emma," Sarah whispered. "Emma Rose. My daughter's name was Lily. She died when she was 6 months old." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I never got to see her smile, never got to hear her say Mama, never got to watch her take her first steps." The baby in her arms cooed softly and reached up to touch Sarah's wet cheek. "Emma Rose." Sarah said, her voice stronger now. "We'll call her Emma Rose." Jack nodded slowly. "That's a good name." Emma yawned, showing her tiny gums, and finally let her eyes close. Within seconds she was asleep, her small chest rising and falling in peaceful rhythm. "She trusts us," Sarah said softly. "She doesn't know any better." "No." Sarah looked at Jack with those warm brown eyes. "She knows exactly what she's doing. Children know who loves them. They can feel it." Jack wanted to argue. He wanted to say that they were strangers, that this baby would be taken away soon, that getting attached was foolish. But he couldn't say any of it because the truth was he was already attached. The moment that tiny hand had reached up to him from that crate, something had shifted in his soul. "What if we can't keep her?" he asked quietly. "Then we love her for as long as we can," Sarah said. "And we give her something to remember, even if she's too young to remember it. We give her a foundation, a feeling, a knowing deep down that she was wanted, that she mattered." Jack looked at the sleeping baby, at her peaceful face, at her tiny fingers still wrapped around Sarah's. "You're a brave woman, Sarah Bennett." "No, I'm not." Sarah smiled sadly. "I'm terrified. But some things are worth being scared for." It was past midnight when the knock came at the door. Jack had been dozing in his chair, Sarah curled up on the small couch, with Emma sleeping peacefully in her arms. The sound made them both jump. Dr. Carter, who had been reading in his study, went to answer it. A woman stood on the porch, small, middle-aged, Hispanic. Her face was streaked with tears, and her hands were shaking. "Please," she said in accented English, "I need to speak to Senor Reeves about the baby." Jack was at the door in 3 strides. "Who are you?" "My name is Maria Santos. I work for Judge Nathaniel Blackwood." The woman wrung her hands. "And I know something about that baby, something terrible. Come inside." Maria stepped into the office, glancing nervously over her shoulder as if expecting to be followed. When she saw Emma sleeping in Sarah's arms, she crossed herself and whispered something in Spanish that sounded like a prayer. That baby. Maria's voice was barely audible. She belongs to the Blackwood family. Sarah's face went pale. Judge Blackwood C. His daughter, Miss Elizabeth. Everyone calls her Beth. She had this baby 9 months ago, in secret. The judge, he was so ashamed. An unmarried daughter with a child. It would destroy his reputation, his precious name. Maria's voice turned bitter. So he sent Beth away. He told her the baby died during the birth. He made her believe her daughter was dead. Jack's jaw tightened. But the baby lived. See, the baby lived. And the judge, he paid a man to make the problem disappear. I heard them talking. Judge Blackwood, he said that child is better off dead than bringing shame to this family. I heard him say those words with my own ears. Emma started fussing, picking up on the tension in the room. Sarah bounced her gently, but her eyes were fixed on Maria. Who is the man? Sarah asked. The one the judge paid. Maria shook her head. I don't know his name. A stranger. The judge paid him $200 to take the baby far away and make sure she never came back. $200. Jack's voice was ice. That's what a child's life is worth to Judge Blackwood. The man was supposed to take her to another territory. But something must have happened. Maybe he got scared. Maybe he got lazy. Whatever the reason, he left her in that crate instead of taking her away. He left her to die in the sun. Jack thought about finding Emma, about her cracked lips and sunburned skin, about the way she'd reached for him like he was her last hope in the world. That man is still out there, Jack said. See, and now the judge is looking for him, looking for the baby too. He wants to make sure there is no evidence, no proof of what he did. Sarah pulled Emma closer. He wants her dead. Maria nodded miserably. I am so sorry. I should have said something sooner. I should have stopped it, but I was afraid. The judge, he is so powerful. He destroys anyone who crosses him. Why are you telling us now? Jack asked. Maria's eyes filled with fresh tears. Because that baby is innocent. Because Miss Beth cries every night for the daughter she thinks is dead. Because I am tired of being afraid. She grabbed Jack's arm. Please, Senor, you must protect her. You must not let the judge take her. I already made that promise, Jack said. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with the weight of what was coming. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the windows. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled. And in his mansion on the hill, overlooking Silver Creek, Judge Nathaniel Blackwood sat in his study, staring at the portrait of his father. The father who had destroyed the family name with a scandal 40 years ago. The father who had taken the coward's way out, leaving young Nathaniel to rebuild everything from nothing. Never again. Blackwood whispered to the painted eyes, I will never let our name be destroyed again. He turned to the man standing in the shadows. Raymond Sloan, the man he'd paid to dispose of the problem. You told me she was dead. Ray Sloan shifted uncomfortably. I left her where no one would find her. But someone did find her. Blackwood's voice was deadly quiet. Jack Reeves found her, and now the whole town knows. I can fix this, you better. Blackwood leaned forward. Because if you don't, I'll make sure everyone knows it was you who tried to kill that baby. I'll make sure you hang for it. Ray Sloan nodded and disappeared into the night. Blackwood returned to his portrait, to his father's disappointed eyes. Some sins, he thought, are necessary to protect what matters. And in Silver Creek, as the clock struck 1 in the morning, Jack Reeves held a sleeping baby and made a silent vow. This child would not pay for the sins of her grandfather. This child would not die because powerful men valued reputation over life. This child was his to protect now, and God help anyone who tried to take her away. 3 days passed. Emma Rose grew stronger every hour. Her skin healed. Her appetite returned. She started babbling and laughing and reaching for things with the curiosity of a healthy baby discovering the world. And every time she saw Jack, she would lift her arms and say, Papa. She's confused, Jack said the first time it happened, his voice rough. She knows exactly who you are. Sarah was smiling. Children don't make mistakes about love. Jack didn't know how to feel about that. Part of him wanted to run. Part of him wanted to gather that baby up and never let her go. Part of him was back in that burning house, reaching for a son he couldn't save. But Emma wasn't Ethan. And this wasn't the past. This was now. This was a second chance. Maybe. On the third night, Jack was sitting on the porch of Dr. Carter's office watching the sun set over the dry hills when a line of carriages appeared on the horizon. Black, expensive, moving with the slow certainty of men who owned the world. Dr. Jack called through the open door, "We got company." Dr. Carter came out drying his hands on a towel. His face went pale when he saw the carriages. "That's Blackwood. Get Sarah and Emma to the back room. Now." But before anyone could move, the carriages pulled up in front of the office. 6 men stepped out. 5 were hired muscle, the kind of men who settled disputes with fists and guns. The 6th was Judge Nathaniel Blackwood himself. He was tall, silver-haired, with the kind of face that looked like it had been carved from granite. Everything about him spoke of power and wealth and absolute certainty that the world would bend to his will. His suit probably cost more than most men in Silver Creek made in a year. "Mr. Reeves," Blackwood's voice was smooth as silk. "We haven't been formally introduced. I'm Judge Nathaniel Blackwood. I know who you are. Good. Then you know I'm not a man to be trifled with." Blackwood stepped forward. "I understand you found something that belongs to me. I'm here to collect it." Jack didn't move from his position on the porch. "I don't have anything that belongs to you. Don't play games with me, cowboy. The baby, the one you pulled from the creek. She's my granddaughter. My blood, my property. Property." Jack's voice hardened. "That baby is a human being, not property." "Semantics." Blackwood waved his hand dismissively. "The child belongs with her family, with her mother." He gestured toward the carriage. A young woman stepped out, thin, pale, with blonde hair pulled back severely. She walked with her head down, never looking up, never making eye contact with anyone, but Jack could see the bruises on her arms where her sleeves didn't quite cover them. "This is my daughter Elizabeth." Blackwood grabbed her arm hard enough to make her wince. "Isn't that right, Beth? Don't you want your daughter back?" Beth's eyes met Jack's for just a moment. He saw terror there. Years of abuse, a broken spirit, but he also saw something else, a tiny spark of defiance. "Yes, Father," Beth whispered. "I want my daughter back." Blackwood smiled. "There, you see. The mother wants her child. It's only natural, only right. So let's make this simple, Mr. Reeves. Tell me where the baby is and we can all go home happy." "I don't think so." Blackwood's smile faded. "I beg your pardon, I said no." Jack stood his ground. "That baby was left to die. Someone put her in a crate and abandoned her in 100-degree heat. She was hours away from death when I found her. And now you want me to hand her over to the people who tried to kill her? That ain't going to happen." Blackwood's face went red. "How dare you? I am Judge Nathaniel Blackwood. I own half this county. I could destroy you with a word. Then do it. Destroy me, take my ranch, ruin my name. I don't care." Jack stepped forward and Blackwood's men tensed. "But you will never touch that baby, not while I'm breathing." For a long moment nobody moved. Then Blackwood laughed. It was a cold, ugly sound. "I admire your courage, Mr. Reeves. Stupid, but admirable." He released Beth's arm and straightened his coat. "You think you can protect that child from me? You're nothing. A broken-down cowboy with a dead wife and a dead son, and nothing to show for his pathetic life." Jack flinched. The words hit exactly where Blackwood intended. "Oh, yes, I know about you," Blackwood continued. "I know about the fire, about your family, about how you failed to save them." He leaned closer. "You couldn't protect your own son. What makes you think you can protect anyone else?" The rage that flooded through Jack was white-hot. His fists clenched. Every muscle in his body screamed for him to hit this man, to wipe that smug smile off his face, but he didn't. Because that's exactly what Blackwood wanted, a reason to have him arrested, a reason to take everything. "Get out," Jack said quietly. "I'll leave when I'm ready. No, you'll leave now. Dr. Carter appeared from inside holding a shotgun. This is my office, Judge, and I'm asking you to leave. Blackwood's eyes narrowed. Samuel, I should have known you'd be involved in this. I was there when Jack brought that baby in, Dr. Carter said. I saw what that child looked like, half dead from heat and dehydration. Someone tried to murder her. And if you think I'm going to let you cover that up, you don't know me at all. Blackwood stared at him for a long moment. Then he smiled again. Very well. I'll go, for now. He turned back to Jack. But this isn't over, Mr. Reeves. Not by a long shot. I'll have that baby back one way or another, and anyone who stands in my way will regret it. He grabbed Beth's arm again and dragged her toward the carriage. At the threshold, Beth looked back at Jack. Find Daniel, she whispered desperately. Daniel Cooper. He's her father. Find him, please. Then she was gone, pulled out into the harsh sunlight by her father's iron grip. Dr. Carter lowered the shotgun. His hands were shaking. That man is going to come back with an army. The doctor said, I know. And we've got nothing, no proof, no allies. Just a baby and a bunch of people too scared to stand up to him. Jack walked to the window and watched Blackwood's carriage roll away. Not nothing, he said slowly. We've got Beth. She's ready to turn against him. I could see it in her eyes. Beth's been under his thumb her whole life. You really think she can stand up to him when it counts? She's going to have to. Jack turned back. Because I think I know how to beat Blackwood, but I'm going to need everyone. Beth, Maria, you, Sarah, everyone willing to stand. What's your plan? Beth said something about the baby's father, Daniel Cooper. Blackwood drove him away, but Beth doesn't know if he's alive or dead. Jack's eyes gleamed. So if we find Daniel Cooper, we've got another witness. Another person who can testify about what Blackwood did. And more than that, we've got the baby's father. A man with legal rights to his own child. Dr. Carter's eyes widened. That's actually smart. Don't sound so surprised. The doctor almost smiled. How do we find him? I'm going to need your help. And Sheriff Cole Morgan's, whether he wants to give it or not. Tom won't help. He's too scared of Blackwood. Then Tom is going to have to choose a side, Jack said. We all are. Blackwood spent 30 years making people afraid, making them think they have no choice. But everyone has a choice. It's just a matter of finding the courage to make it. The next morning, Jack rode to the sheriff's office. Cole Morgan was sitting at his desk, looking like he hadn't slept in days. When he saw Jack, he stood up quickly. Jack, before you say anything, I need to tell you something. Blackwood came to see me last night. I figured he would. He's got a custody order. Cole pulled out a document from Judge Harrison in Austin. It's legal, Jack. He's planning a hearing 3 days from now. 3 days. And he's bringing lawyers, real ones from the city. Cole ran his hand through his hair. I'm trying to give you a heads up here. Whatever you're doing with that baby, you better make it legal fast, because Blackwood's coming. And when he does, he's going to come hard. Jack stepped forward. That baby was left in a crate to die, Cole. Someone wanted her dead. And now you're telling me the man who probably ordered it wants her back. You think I'm going to hand her over just because Blackwood's got lawyers? I'm not saying you should hand her over. I'm saying you need to be smart about this. Get your own lawyer. Document everything. Don't give Blackwood any reason to come at you sideways. What about justice, Sheriff? What about finding the man who left a baby to die in the sun? Cole looked away. I'm investigating. But these things take time. Time? Jack laughed, but there was no humor in it. How much time you think that baby had when I found her? Another hour, maybe 2. She was dying, Cole. Someone tried to murder a child. And you're talking about time. I'm doing what I can, Jack. No, you're doing what Crawford lets you do. There's a difference. Cole's face reddened. For a moment he looked like he might argue. Then his shoulders slumped. Just be careful, he said quietly. That's all I'm asking. Be careful. He reached into his drawer and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Daniel Cooper, Cole said. Worked on the Blackwood Ranch 2 years ago. Got run out of town after the judge caught him with Beth. Last anyone heard, he was working at a mining camp about 40 miles north. Place called Copper Ridge. Jack took the paper. "Why are you helping me?" Cole was quiet for a moment. "Because I'm tired of being afraid. Because I've looked the other way for too long. And because that baby deserves better than what Blackwood has planned for her." "Thank you, Tom." "Don't thank me yet. Blackwood's going to come for all of us now. You, me, Dr. Carter, anyone who stood against him." Cole gathered his reins. "Whatever you're going to do, do it fast, because the storm is coming, and it's going to be bad." That afternoon, Jack prepared for the journey north. Sarah insisted on coming with him. "I can ride. I'm not some delicate flower, Jack Reeves. I was raised on a farm in Virginia. I can handle rough country. And Emma, she'll be safer with us than here alone." Sarah's voice was firm. "We go together, all three of us. We find Daniel Cooper, we bring him back, and we end this." Jack wanted to argue, but looking at her face, at the determination in her eyes, he knew it was pointless. "All right," he said, "we leave at dawn." That night, as they packed supplies and prepared for the journey, Maria Santos came running to the office. Her face was pale with fear and something else, hope. "Senor Reeves," she was breathing hard. "Miss Beth, she escaped." "What?" "She climbed out her window 2 nights ago and ran. I helped her. I gave her money and told her where to hide." Maria grabbed Jack's hands. "The judge, he is looking everywhere for her. He has offered $5,000 to anyone who turns her in. Where is she in a safe place?" "But she wants to see her daughter. She wants to know Emma is alive." Maria's eyes filled with tears. "And she wants to help you fight her father." Jack looked at Sarah, at Emma, sleeping peacefully in her arms, at the impossible task ahead of them. "Tell Beth we're going to find Daniel. Tell her when we get back we're going to stand together, all of us." He put his hand on Maria's shoulder. "And tell her she doesn't have to be afraid anymore. Tell her there are people willing to fight for her." Maria nodded and disappeared into the night. Sarah walked to Jack and took his hand. "This is bigger than just saving Emma," she said quietly. "We're saving Beth too, and maybe a whole town that's been living in fear." Jack pulled her close. "Then we better not fail." Outside, the wind picked up. Storm clouds gathered on the horizon, and somewhere in his mansion, Judge Nathaniel Blackwood stared at the empty room where his daughter used to sleep and felt something he hadn't felt just in 40 years. Fear. Because for the first time since he'd clawed his way up from his father's disgrace, Nathaniel Blackwood was losing control. And men like him would burn the world down before they let that happen. They left before dawn, riding hard through the darkness with Emma bundled against Sarah's chest. Jack had mapped out a route that avoided the main roads cutting through rough country where Blackwood's men would have trouble following. The kind of terrain that broke wagons and tired horses, the kind of place where a man had to know the land or die trying. By midday they'd covered 20 miles. Emma had been surprisingly good, sleeping through most of the ride and only fussing when she was hungry. Sarah fed her, while Jack watered the horses at a small creek, his eyes constantly scanning the horizon. "How much farther?" Sarah asked. "Another 20 miles. We should reach Copper Ridge by nightfall, and if Daniel Cooper isn't there—" "Then we keep looking." Jack's jaw was set. "We don't stop until we find him." They pushed on through the afternoon heat. The terrain grew rougher, the trail narrower. Twice they had to dismount and lead the horses through rocky passages where one wrong step could mean a broken leg. But they kept moving, driven by the knowledge that every hour they delayed was another hour Blackwood had to plan his next attack. It was late afternoon when Jack heard the sound that made his blood freeze. Horses behind them, moving fast. "Sarah." He grabbed her horse's reins. "Ride. Don't look back. Don't stop until you reach Copper Ridge. What about you? If something happens to me, Emma needs you. She needs her mama." Jack looked her in the eyes. "Please, Sarah, go." Sarah's face went pale, but she nodded. "Don't you dare die, Jack Reeves. Wouldn't dream of it." She kicked her horse and rode. Jack watched her disappear over the ridge, then turned to face whatever was coming. 3 riders emerged from the trail behind him. Jack recognized the one in front immediately. Raymond Sloan, the man Blackwood had paid to dispose of Emma. Behind him were 2 other hired guns, the kind of men who settled problems with bullets and didn't ask questions. Sloan pulled up his horse and grinned. It was the smile of a man who knew he had the upper hand. "Dawson," Sloan called out, "the judge figured you'd run. He sent us to make sure you didn't get far. I ain't running." Jack's hand rested on his rifle. "I'm riding. There's a difference. Don't matter what you call it." Sloan dismounted slowly. "You've got something that belongs to Judge Blackwood. We're here to collect. The baby don't belong to Blackwood. She belongs to herself. And to the people who love her." Sloan laughed. "That's real touching. But see, here's the thing. The judge don't care about love. He cares about blood, about family, about making sure his name stays clean." He nodded to his men. "Take him." They moved fast. Jack got off one shot, catching the rider on his left in the shoulder. The man screamed and fell from his horse, clutching his arm. But before Jack could aim again, Sloan was on him, tackling him off Rusty and sending them both crashing to the ground. They fought dirty, fists and elbows and knees. Jack was strong from years of ranch work, but Sloan was bigger, younger, meaner. A punch caught Jack in the jaw and sent stars exploding across his vision. "Where's the baby?" Sloan pinned him down, one hand around his throat. "Where'd you send her?" Jack spat blood in his face. "Go to hell." Sloan squeezed harder. Wrong answer. Jack's vision was starting to go dark. His lungs burned. He could feel his strength fading, his body giving up the fight. For a moment he was back in that burning house, reaching for Ethan. Failing. Always failing. Melissa. Ethan. "I'm sorry, I tried." And then from somewhere above them, a shot rang out. Sloan jerked and fell sideways, clutching his arm. Jack gasped for air, rolling away, trying to see who had fired. A man stood on the ridge above them, young, maybe mid-20s, with sandy hair and hard eyes. He held a rifle with the easy confidence of someone who knew how to use it. "Get away from him," the stranger said. "Now." The third rider, the one Jack hadn't shot, went for his gun. The stranger fired again, and the man's hat flew off his head. That was a warning. "Next one won't be." Sloan struggled to his feet, blood pouring from the wound in his arm. "This ain't over, Reeves. The judge will send more men. He'll send an army if he has to. Then I'll be waiting." Jack stood up slowly, his whole body aching. "Tell Blackwood something for me. Tell him I'm coming for him. Tell him everything he's done is about to come to light. And tell him if he touches my family, I'll burn his whole world down." Sloan and his wounded companion mounted up and rode away. Jack watched them go, then turned to the stranger who'd saved his life. "I'm obliged to you, mister. You got a name." The young man climbed down from the ridge. Up close, Jack could see the exhaustion in his face, the dirt on his clothes, the desperate hope in his eyes. "Name's Daniel Cooper," he said. "And I'm looking for someone, a woman named Elizabeth Blackwood. I heard she might need help." Jack's heart stopped. "Daniel Cooper." "That's right. The same Daniel Cooper who worked on the Blackwood Ranch 2 years ago, the one who got run out of town." Daniel's face went hard. "How do you know about that?" "Because I've been looking for you." Jack grabbed the young man's arm. "We need to talk. Right now." They found Sarah waiting about a mile up the trail. She'd heard the shots and doubled back, unable to stay away while Jack was in danger. When she saw him riding toward her with a stranger, her face flooded with relief. "Jack, thank God. I heard gunfire. I thought, I'm fine. Hannah, this is Daniel Cooper." Sarah's eyes went wide. Daniel Cooper, the baby's father. Daniel froze. "What did you say?" Jack dismounted and walked toward the young man. This was the moment. Everything depended on how Daniel reacted to what came next. "Mr. Cooper, I need to tell you something. Something that's going to change your life." "What are you talking about?" "Elizabeth Blackwood had a baby. Your baby. About 9 months ago." Daniel's face went pale. "That's impossible. Beth told me. She said she lost the baby. She said there were complications. She was lied to. Her father told her the baby died. But the baby lived, and Judge Blackwood paid a man to get rid of her." Daniel grabbed Jack's shirt. "What do you mean, get rid of her?" "He left her in a crate to die. I found her by Cottonwood Creek, half dead from the heat. If I hadn't come along when I did, she wouldn't have made it. Daniel's legs gave out. He sank to his knees, his whole body shaking. My baby is alive. Sarah dismounted, still holding Emma. She walked over to Daniel and knelt beside him. Her name is Emma Rose. We've been taking care of her. Sarah shifted the baby so Daniel could see her face. She's beautiful. She's strong. And she's been waiting for her father. Daniel looked at his daughter for the first time. His hands were trembling as he reached out to touch her cheek. She has Beth's eyes, he whispered. She looks just like her mama. Emma studied the stranger with curious eyes. Then she reached out and grabbed his finger, holding on tight. Daniel broke down, crying like Jack had never seen a grown man cry. Deep, wrenching sobs that came from somewhere so deep they seemed to tear him apart. I thought she was dead. I thought I'd lost everything. Beth, the baby, everything. He looked up at Jack. Blackwood drove me away, threatened to kill me if I ever came back. I wanted to fight, but I had nothing. No money, no power, no way to protect Beth from her own father. You've got away now, Jack said. That baby gives you rights, legal rights, more than Blackwood has. What do you mean? We're taking down Judge Blackwood, exposing what he did. But we need you, Daniel. We need you to testify, to tell the world what kind of man Nathaniel Blackwood really is. Daniel stood up slowly, his daughter still holding his finger. I'll do anything, whatever it takes. Just tell me what you need. Jack put his hand on the young man's shoulder. We need to get back to Silver Creek, fast. Beth is still trapped in her father's house. Actually, she escaped. She's hiding. She doesn't know Emma is alive. She's been grieving for a daughter she thinks is dead. Beth, Daniel's voice was raw. Is she all right? She's scared. Blackwood's been controlling her whole life, but she's ready to fight. She just needs someone to fight with. Daniel's face hardened with determination. Then let's go. Let's end this. They made camp that night in a small canyon sheltered from the wind. Daniel couldn't stop looking at Emma, couldn't stop touching her tiny hand, her soft hair, her perfect face. He held her while Sarah rested, rocking her gently when she fussed, singing lullabies that his own mother had sung to him. She knows you, Sarah said, watching them. Look at how calm she is with you. She's perfect. Daniel's voice was thick with emotion. I can't believe she's real. I can't believe Blackwood was going to... He couldn't finish the sentence. He's going to pay for what he did, Jack said. I promise you that. They sat in silence for a while, the fire crackling between them. Emma fell asleep in Daniel's arms, her small chest rising and falling in peaceful rhythm. Tell me about Beth, Daniel said quietly. Tell me everything. Jack told him. About Maria's revelation, about Blackwood's visit to the doctor's office, about Beth being dragged away by her father, the bruises on her arms, about her desperate whisper to find Daniel. With every word, Daniel's face grew harder. By the time Jack finished, the young man's hands were clenched into fists. He's been beating her. Daniel's voice was deadly quiet. For years. According to Maria, I should have fought harder. I should have stayed. I should have protected her. You're protecting her now, Sarah said. That's what matters. Daniel looked down at his sleeping daughter. I've spent 2 years in mining camps trying to forget, trying to convince myself that Beth was better off without me, that Blackwood was right, that I had nothing to offer her. He looked up at Jack and Sarah. But I'm done running. I'm done being afraid. Tomorrow we go back. We fight. And we don't stop until Beth and Emma are safe. They rode through the night, pushing the horses harder than they should have. By dawn they reached the outskirts of Silver Creek. The town looked peaceful in the early morning light, smoke rising from chimneys, folks starting their day. But Jack knew better. Peace was an illusion. A storm was coming. He sent Sarah and Daniel to Dr. Carter's office while he headed to see Sheriff Morgan. Cole was already at his desk, looking like he hadn't slept at all. Jack. Thank God. The sheriff's face was grim. Blackwood's been making moves. He's called in lawyers from Austin. He's got a new custody order, and this time it's ironclad. There's a hearing set for tomorrow morning. Then we'll be ready for it." Cole noticed Daniel for the first time. Who's this Daniel Cooper, the baby's father? Cole's eyes went wide. "You found him. He found me." Jack pushed Daniel forward. "He's ready to testify. Ready to tell the court everything Blackwood did to him and Beth." "That's good. That's real good." Cole ran his hand through his hair. "But there's something else you need to know. Something that happened while you were gone. What Beth Blackwood? She escaped from her father's house 2 nights ago. She climbed out a window and ran. Blackwood's men have been searching for her ever since, but she's vanished." Daniel grabbed the sheriff's arm. Where would she go? Does anyone know there's one place? Cole lowered his voice. "Maria Santos, the housekeeper. She helped Beth get out. She's been hiding her somewhere safe. Where I don't know. Maria won't tell anyone. She's scared Blackwood will find out." Cole looked at Daniel. "But she might tell you. If she knows who you are and why you're here." Daniel was already heading for the door. "Wait." Jack stopped him. "You can't just walk into town. Blackwood's men are everywhere. If they see you, they'll kill you. I don't care. Beth is out there somewhere scared and alone. I have to find her. And you will. But we do this smart. We do this together." Jack turned to Cole. "Where can we find Maria?" "She's staying with her cousin on the east side of town. Little house behind the church. Can you get a message to her?" "Tell her Daniel Cooper is here. Tell her we want to help Beth." Cole nodded. "I can do that. But Jack, you need to understand something. This hearing tomorrow, it's not going to be easy. Blackwood's brought in Judge Harrison from Austin. He's not local. He can't be bought. That's good, isn't it? It's a double-edged sword. Harrison will follow the law." "Exactly. No favors for either side. If Blackwood's lawyers make a strong case for family rights, Harrison might rule in their favor, even knowing what Blackwood did. We have to prove what Blackwood did. Accusations aren't enough. We need witnesses, evidence, something solid that Harrison can't ignore." Jack thought about everything they had. Maria's testimony, Daniel's story, Beth wherever she was. It was a lot. But was it enough? "Get the message to Maria," Jack said. "Tell her we need to meet tonight, all of us." The meeting happened after dark in the small house behind the church. Maria came alone, her face pale with fear, but her eyes determined. When she saw Daniel, she burst into tears. "Mr. Cooper, you came back. Miss Beth, she prayed every day that you would come back. Where is she, Maria?" "Please, I have to see her." Maria hesitated. "She is safe. But she is scared. The judge, he has been looking everywhere. He has offered money to anyone who turns her in. No one will turn her in," Sarah said fiercely. "Not if they know what he did. Most people don't know." Maria wrung her hands. "They see the judge as a powerful man, a respected man. They don't see what happens behind closed doors. Then we make them see." Jack stepped forward. "Maria, can you bring Beth here? Can you bring her to us?" Maria looked at Daniel. "If she sees you, it might give her the strength she needs, the strength to face her father." "Please." Daniel's voice was desperate. "I love her. I've always loved her. I came back for her. I came back for both of them." Maria nodded slowly. "Wait here. I will bring her." She slipped out into the darkness. The minutes stretched into an eternity. Jack paced. Sarah held Emma. Daniel stood by the window, watching, waiting, barely breathing. Finally, the door opened. Beth Blackwood stepped inside. She was thinner than Jack remembered, exhausted, her eyes red from crying. But the moment she saw Daniel, her face transformed. Daniel, Beth. They ran to each other. Daniel caught her in his arms and held her like he would never let go. Beth sobbed against his chest, her whole body shaking. You came back. I thought I'd never see you again. I'm here now. And I'm never leaving you again. Our baby Daniel. They told me she died. They told me, I know what they told you." Daniel pulled back and cupped her face in his hands. "But Beth, listen to me. Our daughter is alive." Beth froze. "What? She's alive. She's here, right now." Sarah stepped forward holding Emma. Beth stared at the baby, her baby, the daughter she'd grieved for 9 months, the child she thought was lost forever. Emma. Beth whispered, using the name she'd given her at birth. "Is it really you?" Emma looked at this new stranger with curious eyes. Then she smiled and reached out her arms. Beth took her daughter. Her legs gave out and she sank to the floor, cradling Emma against her chest and weeping. "My baby, my sweet baby, you're alive, you're alive." Emma patted her mother's wet cheek, confused by the tears, but responding to the love. "Mama," she said, "Mama." It was the first time she'd said it to Beth, the first time mother and daughter had truly met. Everyone in the room was crying. Even Jack, who hadn't cried in 8 years, felt tears running down his weathered face. How Beth finally asked, looking up at them, "How is this possible? My father told me she died. He showed me a grave. He lied to you." Jack's voice was gentle. He paid a man to take her away, to make her disappear. But the man got sloppy. He left her in a crate by Cottonwood Creek to die. Beth's face went white. "My father tried to kill my daughter." Yes, his own granddaughter. He thought it was better than the scandal, better than people knowing you'd had a child out of wedlock. Beth looked down at Emma, at her perfect face, her innocent eyes, her tiny fingers gripping Beth's dress. "He would have murdered you," Beth whispered to her daughter. "He would have let you die to protect his precious reputation." When she looked up again, something had changed in her eyes. The fear was gone. In its place was something harder, something stronger. "What do I need to do?" "Testify," Jack said. "Tomorrow in front of Judge Harrison. Tell him everything. What your father did to you, what he did to your daughter, what he's been hiding all these years." Beth's hands trembled as she held Emma. "He'll try to stop me. He'll try to discredit me. He'll say I'm hysterical, that I'm lying." "Let him try. You've got witnesses now. You've got Daniel. You've got Maria. You've got us." Jack knelt beside her. "Miss Blackwood, I know you've been afraid your whole life. I know your father made you believe you were weak. But you're not weak. You survived him. Your daughter survived him. And tomorrow you're going to stand up in that courtroom and show the whole world what kind of man Nathaniel Blackwood really is." Beth took a deep breath. Then she looked at Daniel, who nodded his hand on her shoulder. "I'll do it," she said. "For Emma, for my daughter. I'll tell them everything." The night before the hearing, they gathered at Dr. Carter's office to plan their strategy. Tom Bradley, the town's only lawyer, sat at the table looking nervous but determined. He was a small man who handled wills and property disputes. He'd never gone up against someone like Blackwood before. "We need to be clear about what we're facing," Bradley said. "Blackwood's brought in 3 lawyers from Austin, real prosecutors. They're going to come at us hard." "What's our case?" Jack asked. "We have testimony. Maria can tell the court what she heard. Daniel can testify about being driven away. Beth can talk about the abuse and being lied to about her daughter's death." Bradley paused. "But we need something more, something concrete. Right now, it's our word against Blackwood's. And he's a judge. He's got credibility, power, respect." "What about the man who left Emma to die?" Sarah asked. "Ray Sloan. If we can find him, make him confess what Blackwood paid him to do. Finding him won't be easy," Bradley said. "He's probably halfway to Mexico by now." "Maybe not." Sheriff Morgan spoke up from the doorway. "I've had men watching the roads. Sloan's still in the area. Been drinking heavy at the saloon on the edge of town. Guilt eating at him, I'd say." Jack stood up. "Then we bring him in. You can't just drag him to court," Bradley warned. "We need him to come willingly, to want to testify. Leave that to me." Jack grabbed his hat. "Cole, you're coming with me." They found Ray Sloan exactly where the sheriff said he'd be, sitting alone in a corner of the Dusty Rose Saloon, nursing a bottle of whiskey. His clothes were dirty. His hands shook. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in days. Jack sat down across from him without asking. Sloan looked up with bloodshot eyes. "Come to finish what we started," Sloan's voice was slurred. "Number 1, I came to give you a chance." Sloan laughed bitterly. "A chance at what redemption?" Jack pushed the bottle away. "You left that baby to die, Sloan. But you couldn't do it, could you? You couldn't actually kill her." That's why you put her somewhere people might find her instead of taking her out to the desert like Blackwood wanted." Sloane's face crumpled. "I couldn't. God help me, I couldn't. She was so small, so helpless. She looked at me with those big eyes, and I couldn't." He buried his face in his hands. "I've been running ever since, hiding, drinking myself to death trying to forget what I almost did, but I can't forget. I hear her crying in my sleep, that little cry, begging for help. Then help her now." Jack leaned forward. "Tomorrow morning there's a hearing. Judge Blackwood is trying to get custody of that baby, the same baby he paid you to murder. You can stop him. You can tell the truth. He'll kill me. You don't know what he's capable of. I know exactly what he's capable of. He tried to murder his own granddaughter. He's been beating his daughter for years. He drove Daniel Cooper away and told Beth her baby was dead." Jack's voice was steel. "The question is, are you going to let him keep doing it, or are you going to stand up and do the right thing?" Sloane was quiet for a long time. Then he looked up, and there was something in his eyes that hadn't been there before. Something like hope. "I've got a daughter," he said quietly. "She's about that baby's age, lives with her mama down in San Antonio. I ain't seen her in 2 years because I'm too ashamed of what I've become." He wiped his eyes. "If someone hurt my little girl, I'd want somebody to speak up. I'd want somebody to tell the truth. Then tell it." Jack put his hand on Sloane's shoulder. "Come to court tomorrow. Tell Judge Harrison what Blackwood paid you to do. Give that baby a chance at justice." Sloane nodded slowly. "All right, I'll do it. God forgive me, I'll do it." They left the saloon just as the sun was setting. Cole clapped Jack on the back. "That was good work. We've got our witness. Now we just have to keep him alive until tomorrow." Jack's instinct proved right. They were halfway back to Dr. Carter's office when they heard the sound of breaking glass. Smoke began rising from the direction of the church. The church. Cole's face went pale. That's where Beth was hiding. They ran. By the time they reached the small house behind the church, flames were already consuming the wooden structure. The church itself was untouched, but the house where Maria's cousin lived was engulfed in fire. Beth. Daniel was running toward the flames, but Jack grabbed him. "Wait, look." 3 figures emerged from the smoke. Sarah carrying Emma, Maria supporting a coughing Beth, Dr. Carter bringing up the rear. They'd gotten out just in time. "We saw them coming." Sarah gasped. 3 men with torches. "We barely made it out the back." "Blackwood!" Daniel's voice was filled with rage. "He tried to kill them!" The town's volunteer fire brigade arrived, but it was too late. The house burned to the ground. Folks gathered in the street whispering, watching. Some looked angry, others looked scared. But nobody said Blackwood's name out loud. Jack looked at the faces in the crowd. These were good people, decent people. But they'd been living under Blackwood's thumb for so long, they didn't remember what it was like to stand up for what was right. This has to stop. An old man stepped forward. His name was Samuel Whitmore, and he'd been running the general store for 40 years. "I've kept my mouth shut for too long. We all have. But burning houses with women and babies inside, that ain't right. That ain't justice." "You're right, Sam," another voice joined in. "Martha Jenkins, the baker's wife. I said some things about Jack and that baby that I ain't proud of, but I was wrong. A man who'd try to kill his own granddaughter don't deserve our respect." One by one, people started speaking up. The blacksmith, the schoolteacher's husband, the widow who ran the boarding house. Ordinary folks who'd been afraid to challenge Blackwood's power. But seeing that house burn, seeing a mother and baby nearly killed something, broke inside them. "We'll testify if you need us to," Sam said to Jack. "Tell the judge what kind of man Blackwood really is, what he's done to this town." Jack felt something shift in his chest. Hope. Real hope. "Thank you. That means more than you know." They moved everyone to Dr. Carter's office for the night. Beth and Daniel sat together, Emma sleeping peacefully between them. Sarah made coffee. Maria prayed quietly in Spanish. And Jack stood watch by the window, rifle in hand, waiting for the next attack. It came an hour before dawn. Not with fire this time, not with guns, but with something far more dangerous. A knock at the door. Jack opened it to find a man he didn't recognize. Well-dressed, lawyer type. He held an envelope. "Mr. Reeves, I'm Walter Hastings, attorney for Judge Blackwood. I've been instructed to deliver this to you personally." He handed Jack the envelope and left without another word. Inside was a legal document. Jack couldn't make sense of all the language, but Tom Bradley could. The lawyer's face went white as he read it. "What is it?" Sarah asked. "It's a countersuit." Bradley's hands shook. Blackwood is suing Jack for kidnapping. He's claiming Jack stole Emma from her legal guardian and has been holding her against the family's wishes. That's insane. Daniel stood up. "Jack saved her life." "It doesn't matter." Bradley pointed to the document. "See, this Blackwood's got witnesses who'll testify they saw Jack refuse to return the baby to her grandfather. He's got medical experts who'll say there was no abandonment, just a tragic accident. He's got character witnesses who'll paint Jack as an unstable man still grieving his own dead child." The lawyer looked up. "If we lose tomorrow, Jack doesn't just lose custody of Emma. He goes to jail. And Blackwood gets the baby." The room fell silent. Emma woke up and started fussing. Beth picked her up, holding her close. "He's not taking her." Beth's voice was quiet but firm. "I don't care what it costs. My father is not taking my daughter." She looked around the room at all of them. "You've all risked so much for us already. Your homes, your safety, your lives. I can't ask you to risk more." "You ain't asking," Jack said. "We're choosing, all of us." Sarah nodded. "We're in this together." Maria crossed herself. "Dios nos ayudará. God will help us." Even Ray Sloan, who'd been sitting quietly in the corner, spoke up. "I'll tell them everything. Every word, every dollar Blackwood paid me. Let him sue me too. I don't care anymore." Daniel put his arm around Beth. "Tomorrow we walk into that courthouse together. We tell the truth, and we let justice decide." As dawn broke over Silver Creek, 6 people prepared for the fight of their lives. Jack cleaned his rifle, knowing he probably wouldn't need it in court, but unable to shake the feeling that Blackwood had one more card to play. Sarah fed Emma and sang to her softly. Beth and Daniel sat together, hands clasped, drawing strength from each other. Maria prayed, and Ray Sloan stared at his own reflection in the window, preparing to face his demons. Tom Bradley reviewed his notes one more time. The case was simple in theory. A man tried to murder a child. He failed. Now he wanted the child back to cover up his crime. But nothing involving Nathaniel Blackwood was ever simple. The courthouse was already filling with people by the time they arrived. News had spread through the county. Folks came from neighboring towns to see the spectacle. Judge Blackwood versus a cowboy and a baby. Power versus truth. The old order versus something new. Blackwood sat at the front table with his lawyers. He looked calm, confident, like a man who'd never lost and couldn't imagine starting now. When he saw Beth walk in carrying Emma, his face hardened, but he didn't speak. Beth sat in the front row, Emma in her arms. Daniel sat beside her. Jack and Sarah took the seats behind them. Maria and Ray Sloan waited in the hallway to be called as witnesses. All rise. The bailiff called out, the Honorable Judge William Harrison presiding. Judge Harrison entered. He was older than Blackwood, maybe 70, with white hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. He'd spent 40 years on the federal bench. He'd seen every trick, every scheme, every attempt to manipulate the law. This would not be an easy man to fool. "Be seated." Harrison's voice carried authority. "We're here to determine custody of the minor child known as Emma Rose Blackwood. Let's proceed." Blackwood's lead attorney stood. A man named Richard Dalton, smooth, polished, the kind of lawyer who made juries forget they were being lied to. "Your Honor, this is a simple case of family reunification. Judge Blackwood's granddaughter was tragically separated from her family through a series of unfortunate events. We're simply asking the court to return her to her rightful guardian." Tom Bradley rose to object, but Harrison held up his hand. "I'll hear opening statements without interruption. Continue, Mr. Dalton." Dalton smiled. "Thank you, Your Honor. The facts are these. Elizabeth Blackwood gave birth to a child 9 months ago. Due to her unstable mental state and youth, Judge Blackwood arranged for the child to be cared for by distant relatives while Miss Blackwood recovered. Unfortunately, there was a miscommunication, and the child ended up abandoned. But that abandonment was not intentional. It was an accident." He gestured toward Jack. "Mr. Reeves, a stranger, found the child and refused to return her to her family. He has been holding her against the wishes of her grandfather and legal guardian. We're asking the court to correct this situation and return Emma to her rightful home." Dalton sat down looking pleased with himself. Harrison turned to Bradley. "Your response?" Tom Bradley stood. He looked small compared to Dalton, nervous, but his voice was steady. "Your Honor, the defense will show that there was no accident. Judge Blackwood deliberately paid a man $200 to murder his granddaughter. We will present witnesses who heard him give the order. We will present the man who was paid to carry it out. And we will show that Judge Blackwood has been lying to his daughter for 9 months, telling her that her baby died while actually trying to ensure that the child would never be found." A murmur ran through the courtroom. Harrison banged his gavel. "Order. These are serious allegations, Mr. Bradley. I trust you can support them. We can—" "Your Honor, we have witnesses ready to testify." "Very well." Harrison leaned back. "Mr. Dalton, call your first witness." And so it began. The battle for Emma Rose. The fight for truth. The moment when everything would be decided. In the hallway, Ray Sloan stood alone, his hands shaking. In a few minutes, he would be called. In a few minutes, he would have to speak the words that would either save a child or condemn himself. He thought about his own daughter, about the life he'd thrown away, about the man he used to be before fear and money turned him into something he didn't recognize. "God help me," he whispered. "Give me the strength to do this right." Inside the courtroom, Judge Harrison called the proceedings to order, and the fate of Emma Rose hung in the balance. Dalton's first witness was Dr. Marcus Pemberton, a physician from Austin who'd never met Emma but had reviewed her medical records. He testified that the child's condition, when found, was consistent with accidental exposure, not deliberate abandonment. He spoke in technical terms about dehydration and heat stroke. He made it sound like a tragic mistake, nothing more. Tom Bradley cross-examined him carefully. "Doctor, how long would you estimate the child was exposed to the sun based on the severity of her burns? At least 4 to 6 hours, possibly longer, and the crate she was found in. Was it open or closed?" "My understanding is that it was closed. Nailed shut, in fact." "Correct." Pemberton shifted uncomfortably. "That's what the reports indicate. So someone placed an infant in a wooden crate, nailed it shut, and left her in the Texas sun for at least 4 to 6 hours. Does that sound like an accident to you, Doctor? Objection?" Dalton stood. "Calls for speculation. Sustained." Harrison looked at Bradley. "Move on, counselor," but the damage was done. The jury of townspeople sitting in the gallery had seen Pemberton squirm. They'd heard the facts laid out plainly. Closed crate, nailed shut, 6 hours in the sun. That wasn't an accident. That was murder. Dalton called 2 more witnesses. A banker who testified to Blackwood's outstanding character. A minister who spoke of the judge's generous donations to the church. Both men painted a picture of a pillar of the community, a man of honor and integrity. Neither mentioned the bruises on Beth's arms. Neither talked about the women who'd fled town rather than face Blackwood's wrath. Neither spoke of the homesteaders who'd lost their land when they couldn't pay debts the judge had called in early. They told the story Blackwood wanted told, the lie that had sustained his power for 30 years. Then it was Bradley's turn. The defense calls Maria Santos to the stand. Maria walked to the witness box in shaking legs. She placed her hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth. When she sat down, she wouldn't look at Blackwood. Couldn't. "Mrs. Santos, how long have you worked for Judge Blackwood?" 20 years, senor. And in that time, have you been privy to private conversations in the Blackwood household? See, I clean the house. I am there when they think I am not listening. Bradley walked her through it carefully. The day Beth came home pregnant, the screaming, the beating that left Beth unable to walk for 3 days, the decision to send her away to have the baby in secret. And what happened after the baby was born, Maria's voice was barely a whisper. The judge told Miss Beth that the baby died. He showed her a grave. He held her while she cried. But there was no baby in that grave. It was empty. How do you know it was empty? Because I saw him pay the gravedigger to dig a hole and put up a marker. No coffin, no body, just dirt and a stone with a lie carved on it. The courtroom erupted. Harrison banged his gavel repeatedly. Order, I will have order in this court. Dalton was on his feet. Your Honor, this witness is clearly biased. She was recently terminated from Judge Blackwood's employment under suspicious circumstances. That's a lie. Maria's voice rang out clear and strong for the first time. I still work for the judge. I work for him today, but I will not lie for him anymore. She turned to face Blackwood directly. I have watched you hurt your daughter for 20 years. I have cleaned up the blood. I have held her while she cried. I have stayed silent because I was afraid. But no more? That baby deserves better. Miss Beth deserves better. And I will tell the truth even if it costs me everything. Blackwood's face was stone. But Jack, watching from his seat, saw the judge's hands clench into fists under the table. The defense calls Raymond Sloan to the stand. Ray Sloan walked down the aisle like a man going to his own hanging. Every eye in the courtroom followed him. He looked terrible, unwashed, unshaven. His hands shook as he placed them on the Bible. State your name for the record. Raymond Sloan. Mr. Sloan, do you know Judge Nathaniel Blackwood? I do. Have you ever done work for him? Yes. What kind of work? Sloan's voice cracked. The kind of work a man ain't proud of. Bradley let the silence stretch. Then quietly, tell the court what Judge Blackwood hired you to do 9 months ago. Sloan closed his eyes. He paid me $200 to take a baby away, to make sure she never came back. Can you elaborate on what a make sure she never came back means? It means... Sloan opened his eyes and looked directly at the judge. It means he wanted me to kill her, to take her out to the desert and leave her where no one would ever find her, to let her die from the heat or the coyotes or whatever came first. The courtroom went silent, so silent you could hear the clock ticking on the wall. And did you do what Judge Blackwood asked? I tried. God help me, I tried. I took that baby. I drove out toward the desert, but when I looked at her, when she looked up at me with those big eyes, I couldn't. I couldn't kill a baby. So I left her by Cottonwood Creek instead. I thought someone would find her. I thought... His voice broke completely. I thought I was doing the right thing, but I nearly killed her anyway. If Mr. Reeves hadn't come along when he did, she'd be dead. And it would be my fault as much as Blackwood's. Dalton tried to destroy him on cross-examination, questioned his drinking, his debts, his criminal record, suggested he was being paid to lie. But Sloan didn't waver. How much is the defense paying you to testify today? Dalton asked. Nothing. You expect this court to believe you're here out of the goodness of your heart. No, sir. Sloan looked at the lawyer with haunted eyes. I'm here because I've got a daughter about that baby's age, and I want to be able to look her in the eye someday and tell her that when it mattered, when I had a chance to do the right thing, I did it. He looked at Judge Harrison. I did a terrible thing. I know that, and I'm ready to face whatever punishment comes. But that man, he pointed at Blackwood, that man ordered the murder of his own grandchild, and he shouldn't be allowed to take her now and finish what I couldn't do. Dalton had no response to that. He sat down, defeated. The defense calls Elizabeth Blackwood to the stand. Beth stood slowly. Emma was sleeping in Sarah's arms, peaceful and trusting. Beth kissed her daughter's forehead, then walked to the witness stand. She didn't look at her father, kept her eyes forward, her hands steady, When she placed her hand on the Bible to swear, in her voice was clear and strong. "State your name, Elizabeth Ann Blackwood." "Miss Blackwood, Judge Nathaniel Blackwood is your father, correct?" "Yes." "Tell the court about your relationship with him." Beth took a breath. Then she began to speak, and once she started, she couldn't stop. 23 years of fear and pain and silence came pouring out. She told them about the first time he hit her. She was 7 years old. She'd spilled milk at dinner. He backhanded her so hard she lost a tooth. She told them about the isolation, how he controlled every aspect of her life, who she spoke to, what she wore, where she went, how he told her she was worthless, stupid, that no man would ever want her except to use her. She told them about Daniel, about falling in love, about the brief, beautiful months when she thought she might escape, and then about her father finding out, about the beating that put her in bed for a week, about Daniel being driven away with threats of murder. She told them about the pregnancy, about being sent away, about giving birth alone in a house 3 counties away with only a midwife who'd been paid to keep her mouth shut. And she told them about the moment her father came to tell her that her baby had died. He held me while I cried. Beth's voice was steady now, but tears ran down her face. He told me it was God's will, that some babies weren't meant to survive, that I would heal and move on and forget this ever happened. She looked at Judge Harrison. For 9 months I mourned my daughter. I visited the grave every week. I talked to her. I told her I was sorry I couldn't protect her. I told her I loved her. What did you feel when you learned your daughter was alive? Beth turned to look at Emma. Sarah had brought her forward and the baby was awake now, reaching toward her mother. I felt like I could breathe for the first time in 9 months, like the weight that had been crushing my chest was finally gone. Beth's voice broke. My father told me she was dead. He showed me a grave with her name on it. He held me while I cried for a daughter who was alive, who he'd tried to murder. She turned to face Blackwood for the first time. The courtroom held its breath. "You're a monster," Beth said quietly. "You're my father, and I'm supposed to love you, but you're a monster. You beat me. You controlled me. You drove away the man I loved. And then you tried to kill my child to protect your precious reputation." Tears streamed down her face, but her voice never wavered. "Well, I'm done protecting your reputation. I'm done being afraid. Everyone in this courtroom needs to know what you really are. Not a judge, not a pillar of the community. A coward who would murder an infant to avoid scandal." Blackwood exploded. He surged to his feet, his face purple with rage. "You ungrateful child. After everything I've done for you, I gave you a home, I gave you food, I gave you a name." He started toward her, his fist raised. Beth flinched, and for a moment she was 7 years old again, watching that hand come down. But the hand never reached her. Daniel was there first, stepping between Beth and her father. He caught Blackwood's wrist and stopped it cold. "You don't touch her." Daniel's voice was ice. "Not now. Not ever again." Blackwood tried to pull away, but Daniel held firm. Then Jack was there too, and Sheriff Morgan pulling Blackwood back. The judge fought them, screaming, "She's mine. She belongs to me. I made her. I can do what I want with her." The mask had finally cracked. The dignified judge was gone. In his place was a man consumed by rage and ego and the desperate need to control. Judge Harrison stood, his gavel banging like thunder. "Mr. Blackwood, you will sit down immediately or I will hold you in contempt." Blackwood finally stopped struggling. His lawyers pulled him back to his seat. But the damage was done. The entire courtroom had seen him try to strike his daughter, had heard him claim ownership of another human being, had seen the monster beneath the suit. Harrison called a recess, 30 minutes for everyone to collect themselves. Jack led Beth and Daniel outside where Sarah waited with Emma. Beth collapsed into Daniel's arms, sobbing. "I did it. I stood up to him. I finally stood up to him. You were incredible." Daniel held her close. "So brave." Inside the courtroom, Blackwood sat alone at his table. His lawyers had abandoned him, stepping away like they were afraid his poison might be contagious. He stared at his hands, the hands that had built an empire, the hands that had beaten his daughter, the hands that had nearly murdered his grandchild. He'd lost. He knew it. The entire county had seen him lose control, had seen the truth. But Nathaniel Blackwood had not survived 40 years by accepting defeat. When court reconvened, Judge Harrison's face was grave. "I have heard testimony from multiple witnesses. I have reviewed the medical evidence. I have listened to the parties involved. And I must say, in 40 years on the bench, I have rarely encountered such a disturbing case." He looked directly at Blackwood. "Sir, you have disgraced not only yourself but the entire judiciary. You have used your position of power to terrorize your own family. You have conspired to commit murder, and you have lied to this court repeatedly." Harrison's voice rose with righteous anger. "I am recommending your immediate arrest for conspiracy to commit murder. I am also recommending a full investigation into your conduct as a judge, your business dealings, and any other crimes you may have committed during your tenure." Blackwood sat motionless, his world crumbling around him. As for custody of the child known as Emma Rose Blackwood, Judge Harrison continued, "I am ruling in favor of her biological parents, Daniel Cooper and Elizabeth Blackwood. They will have full custody. I am also naming Jack Reeves and Sarah Bennett as legal guardians should anything happen to the parents." The courtroom erupted in cheers. Beth sobbed with relief. Daniel wrapped his arms around her. Emma, sensing the joy, laughed and clapped her hands. Furthermore, Harrison raised his voice over the noise. "I am commending Mr. Reeves and Miss Bennett for their heroic actions in saving this child's life. Without their courage, we would be holding a funeral today instead of a hearing." He banged his gavel. "Court is adjourned." Sheriff Morgan walked to Blackwood's table with handcuffs. The judge stood slowly, drawing himself up to his full height, trying one last time to summon the dignity that had served him so well for so long. "You can't do this to me." His voice was hollow. "I am Judge Nathaniel Blackwood. I own this town." "Not anymore." Morgan snapped the cuffs on Blackwood's wrists. "Not anymore." As Blackwood was led away, he passed Beth one final time. He stopped and she met his gaze without flinching. "You've destroyed this family," Blackwood said. "You've destroyed everything I built." Beth's voice was quiet but firm. "No, Father. You destroyed this family a long time ago. I'm just finally free of it." Blackwood was dragged out of the courtroom, his protest echoing down the hall until they faded into silence. It was over. Jack stood in the middle of the chaos, watching people celebrate around him. Dr. Carter was shaking Tom Bradley's hand. Maria was crying with relief, being hugged by half the women in town. Daniel and Beth were holding Emma between them both, weeping and laughing at the same time. Sarah appeared at his side and took his hand. "We did it," she said softly. "We did it together." She leaned into him, and Jack wrapped his arm around her shoulders. For the first time in 8 years, the weight on his chest was gone. The guilt, the grief, the feeling that he'd failed and would never stop failing. Emma spotted him and stretched out her arms. "Papa." "Papa," Beth smiled through her tears. "I think someone wants you." Jack took Emma from her arms. The baby grabbed his face with both hands and planted a wet kiss on his cheek. "She loves you," Beth said. "She may be my daughter by blood, but you're her papa. You saved her life. You gave her a family when she had none." "What happens now?" Jack asked. Daniel stepped forward. "Beth and I have been talking. We want to stay in Silver Creek, build a life here. But we don't want to take Emma away from the people who love her." "What are you saying?" Beth smiled. "We're saying we want you in her life. All of you. As her other parents, I suppose. Or grandparents, or whatever you want to call yourselves." She reached out and touched Jack's arm. "You didn't just save her life, Mr. Reeves. You saved mine too. You gave me the courage to stand up to my father. I'll never forget that." Outside the courthouse, the sun was setting over Silver Creek. The drought had finally broken. Rain clouds gathered on the horizon, promising water for the dry land. promising new life. Jack stood with Sarah holding Emma, surrounded by Daniel and Beth and Maria and all the ordinary people who'd found the courage to stand up for what was right. And for the first time since the fire took everything from him, Jack Reeves felt something he thought he'd never feel again. He felt whole. The days following the trial felt like waking from a long nightmare. Silver Creek transformed. People walked differently, talked differently. The fear that had hung over the town for 30 years lifted like morning fog under the sun. Nathaniel Blackwood was transferred to the federal prison in Austin to await his murder conspiracy trial. The investigation into his business dealings uncovered decades of corruption, illegal foreclosures, bribed officials, threats, and intimidation. The empire he'd built on fear and control crumbled in weeks. His mansion on the hill stood empty. Nobody wanted to buy it. Too many bad memories trapped in those walls. Too much pain soaked into the floorboards. Eventually, the bank would take it. Eventually, someone would tear it down and build something new. But for now, it stood as a monument to the simple truth that power built on cruelty cannot last. Beth moved into a small house on the edge of town with Daniel and Emma. It wasn't much. 2 bedrooms, a kitchen that needed work, a porch that sagged on one side. But it was theirs. Nobody could take it away. Nobody could tell them what to do inside those walls. Daniel found work at Jack's ranch. He was good with horses, patient, strong, and he was learning the land, learning what it meant to build something instead of just surviving. Every evening he'd ride home to Beth and Emma, and the smile on his face said everything about the life he'd never dared to dream of having. Maria Santos opened a small bakery with money donated by the townspeople who wanted to thank her for her courage. She called it Emma's Place, and every morning she baked pan dulce and empanadas, and the smell filled Main Street with sweetness. Her cousin helped her run it, and on Sundays Beth would bring Emma to visit, and Maria would hold the baby and cry happy tears. Ray Sloan was charged with attempted murder, but received a reduced sentence in exchange for his testimony. 3 years instead of 20. When he was released, he went back to San Antonio to try to rebuild a relationship with his own daughter. Jack heard later that he'd found work as a carpenter and was attending church every Sunday, trying to become the man he should have been all along. Sheriff Cole Morgan was elected in a landslide when the next election came. He cleaned house, fired the deputies who'd been on Blackwood's payroll, hired men who believed in justice instead of power. Silver Creek became the kind of town where the law actually meant something again, and Jack Reeves discovered something he'd forgotten in 8 years of grief and isolation. He discovered he could still love. 6 months after the trial, on a crisp October morning, when the first cool breeze of autumn touched Texas, Jack Reeves married Sarah Bennett. The ceremony was held at the small church on Main Street, the same church that had nearly burned when Blackwood's men attacked. It had been rebuilt, made stronger, just like the people who filled it now. Jack stood at the altar in his Sunday best, uncomfortable in the starched collar, but unable to stop smiling. Daniel stood beside him as best man. Dr. Carter sat in the front row, beaming like a proud father. Half the town crowded into the pews, and the other half stood outside in the street, unwilling to miss the moment. When Sarah walked down the aisle, Jack forgot how to breathe. She wore a simple white dress. Her auburn hair was loose around her shoulders. She carried wildflowers that Emma had helped pick that morning. She was beautiful. Not because of the dress or the flowers or any of that. She was beautiful because she was Sarah. The woman who had walked into his life when he least expected it. The woman who had taught him how to hope again. Emma toddled beside her, carrying a basket of flower petals and throwing them with more enthusiasm than accuracy. The congregation laughed as petals landed on heads and laps and everywhere except the aisle. Papa. Emma spotted Jack and abandoned her flower duty entirely, running toward him on unsteady legs. He scooped her up with one arm, holding her against his chest as Sarah reached the altar. "Couldn't wait, could you, little one?" Emma just grinned and grabbed his nose. The preacher cleared his throat, trying not to laugh. "Should we proceed?" Sarah smiled. "This seems about right. The 3 of us together." The ceremony was short and sweet. The preacher talked about love and second chances and how God works in mysterious ways. He talked about how brokenness can be healed if we're brave enough to let people in. When he asked if anyone objected, Emma shouted no, so loudly that everyone burst into laughter. "I now pronounce you husband and wife." The preacher grinned. "You may kiss the bride." Jack pulled Sarah close and kissed her, while Emma clapped and cheered between them, completely delighted by the attention. "I love you," Sarah whispered against his lips. "I love you too, both of you." The reception was held in the church hall. Beth and Daniel danced together, finally able to love each other openly without fear. Maria brought enough food to feed twice as many people. Dr. Carter gave a toast that went on far too long, but nobody minded. Sheriff Morgan showed up looking lighter than anyone had seen him in years. Toward evening, as the sun painted the sky orange and gold, Jack stood on the church steps with Sarah beside him and Emma asleep in his arms. Daniel and Beth had already said their goodnights, taking Emma home to the small house where she now spent half her time. Tomorrow she'd be back with Jack and Sarah. The day after with Daniel and Beth again. 4 parents, 1 child. A family that shouldn't work but did, because it was built on love instead of blood, on choice instead of obligation. "Ready to go home, Mrs. Reeves?" Jack asked. Sarah smiled. "I've been ready my whole life." They walked together through the quiet streets of Silver Creek, a family bound not by blood, but by something stronger, by choice, by sacrifice, by love. 1 year later, on the anniversary of the day Jack found Emma by Cottonwood Creek, the family gathered for a celebration. Emma was almost 2 now, running everywhere on sturdy legs and talking in complete sentences. She called Jack Papa, and Sarah Mama, and Beth Mama Beth, and Daniel Daddy. She had 4 parents who loved her more than anything in the world, and she knew it. The gathering was held at Broken Spur Ranch. Jack had rebuilt the old house, added a nursery, created a home instead of just a place to sleep. The scars from the fire 8 years ago were still visible if you knew where to look, but new life had grown around them. "Tell the story, Papa," Emma demanded, climbing into Jack's lap. "Tell about the creek. You know that story by heart, sweetheart. Tell it again." Jack smiled and began the familiar tale. Once upon a time there was a cowboy who thought he'd lost everything worth living for. He worked hard and kept to himself and tried not to think about what his life could have been. Then what? Then one hot summer day he was riding by the creek when he heard a sound, a tiny voice calling for help. Emma's eyes were wide, even though she'd heard the story 100 times. "He found a baby in a box." "He found a baby in a box," Jack confirmed. "A perfect little girl with big blue eyes and the strongest spirit he'd ever seen. She'd been left there to die, but she refused to give up. She kept fighting to live." "That was me," Emma announced proudly. "That was you. And when that cowboy held you in his arms for the first time, something changed inside him. He realized he wasn't empty after all. He just hadn't found the right people to love yet." Sarah came to sit beside them, her hand resting on her swollen belly. Their second child was due in 3 months, a boy, Dr. Carter said. "A brother for Emma." "Tell her the ending," Sarah said softly. Jack kissed the top of Emma's head. The cowboy took that baby home, and along the way, he found something he never expected. He found a woman who taught him how to hope again. He found friends who stood by him when times got hard, and he found out that family isn't about blood or names or where you come from. What's it about? Papa Jack looked at Sarah, at Emma, at Beth, and Daniel, who joined them on the porch at the life he'd built from the ashes of everything he'd lost. Family is about who you choose to love and who chooses to love you back. Emma nodded seriously, like this was the most important wisdom in the world. "I choose you, Papa. I choose you too, little one, always and forever." She fell asleep in his arms, safe and loved and home. And Jack Reeves, the man who'd spent 8 years running from his own heart, finally understood what it meant to truly live. Not because the past didn't hurt anymore. It always would. He still thought about Melissa and Ethan, still carried their memory like a weight in his chest, still had nights when he woke up hearing a 3-year-old boy calling for his papa. But he'd learned something in the year since Emma came into his life. He'd learned that grief and joy could exist in the same heart, that remembering the dead didn't mean betraying them by loving the living, that second chances were real even when you thought you didn't deserve them. The sun set over Broken Spur Ranch, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. Beth and Daniel played with Emma in the yard while Sarah rested her hand on Jack's shoulder. Dr. Carter and Maria arrived with food and laughter. Sheriff Morgan came with his new wife, a widow from the next county over, who made him smile like a schoolboy. They ate together, told stories, watched Emma chase fireflies in the gathering darkness. And when the little girl finally wore herself out, Jack carried her inside and tucked her into the bed that waited for her in the room he'd built just for these visits. "You're safe now," he whispered, kissing her forehead. "I'm right here." Emma stirred but didn't wake. Her small hand clutched the edge of his shirt even in sleep, unwilling to let go. Jack stood there for a long moment watching her breathe, thinking about the day he'd found her, about how close he'd come to riding past that creek without stopping, about how one moment of choice had changed everything. Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance. Jack walked to the window and looked out at the land he'd worked for 20 years, the land that had nearly broken him, the land that had now given him a reason to keep going. Rain began to fall, soft at first, then harder. The first real rain in 8 years of drought. The land soaked it up like a blessing, and standing there in the darkness, watching water fall from the sky, Jack felt something shift in his soul. Forgiveness, not for Blackwood or the men who'd tried to hurt Emma, but forgiveness for himself, for not reaching Ethan in time, for not saving Melissa, for 8 years of believing he didn't deserve to be happy. Sarah found him standing at the window. She wrapped her arms around him from behind, her pregnant belly pressed against his back. "What are you thinking about?" Jack was quiet for a moment. "About second chances. About how I thought my life was over 8 years ago. How I thought I'd never feel anything but pain again." He turned to face her. "And then a baby cried in the desert. And a woman walked into a doctor's office. And everything changed." Sarah smiled. "Do you believe in fate, Jack Reeves?" "I believe in choice." Jack pulled her close. "I believe we choose to love. We choose to hope. We choose to keep going even when it would be easier to give up." He looked back toward Emma's room. "I chose to stop at that creek. I chose to break open that crate. I chose to fight for her. And every day since then, I've chosen to be the man she thinks I am." "You are that man." Sarah's voice was firm. "You always were. You just forgot for a while." They stood together in the darkness, listening to the rain. In the next room, Emma dreamed her innocent dreams, safe in a house full of love. Down the road, Beth and Daniel walked home hand in hand, building their own new life. In town, Maria locked up her bakery and said a prayer of thanks. Across the county, in a federal prison cell, Nathaniel Blackwood sat alone with his choices and his consequences. And at Broken Spur Ranch, Jackson Reeves held his wife and listened to the rain and felt peace for the first time in 8 years. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, a baby on the way, a ranch to run, a daughter who needed 4 parents working together to raise her right. The world was still hard, still full of pain and loss and things that couldn't be fixed. But tonight, there was rain after 8 years of drought. There was love after 8 years of loneliness. There was hope after 8 years of despair. And sometimes Jack thought that was enough. Sometimes that was everything. 3 years later, on a warm spring morning, Jack sat on his porch watching Emma teach her little brother how to feed the chickens. She was 5 now, bossy and confident and full of life. She split her time between 2 houses and 4 parents and loved every minute of it. The boy Thomas, named for the son Jack had lost, was 2. He had Sarah's eyes and Jack's stubborn chin and a laugh that could light up the darkest room. Papa. Emma ran up the porch steps. Thomas wants to hear the story. Which story? The creek story. The one about how you found me? Jack lifted Thomas onto his lap and gestured for Emma to sit beside him. All right, but then you two need to help your mama with the garden. He began the story one more time. The story that had become family legend. The story that Emma would tell her own children someday. The story of how a broken cowboy and an abandoned baby saved each other. But this time, as he told it, Jack added something new, something he'd only recently understood. That cowboy thought he was saving the baby, Jack said. But really, the baby was saving him. She reminded him that life goes on, that love doesn't end just because someone dies, that there's always a reason to keep fighting, to keep hoping, to keep choosing to get up every morning and try again. Emma leaned against his shoulder. Do you still miss them, Papa? Your first family. Every day, sweetheart. Every single day. Does it hurt sometimes, but not the way it used to. Now when I think about them, I remember the good things, the love we had, the time we shared, and I'm grateful for it, instead of just sad. He looked at his children. Your mama helped me understand that, and you did too. You taught me that my heart was big enough for all of you, that loving you didn't mean forgetting them. Thomas didn't understand the words, but he understood the feeling. He wrapped his small arms around Jack's neck and held tight. I love you, Papa. I love you too, son. That evening, the whole family gathered at Broken Spur Ranch. Beth and Daniel brought Emma for her weekly visit. Maria came with fresh bread. Dr. Carter arrived with his new wife, a teacher from Austin who'd stolen the old bachelor's heart. Sheriff Morgan and his wife brought their new baby daughter. They ate together on the porch as the sun set, told stories, laughed, watched the children play. And when darkness fell and the stars came out, Jack stood at the edge of the porch and looked up at the vast Texas sky. He thought about Melissa and Ethan, about the family he'd lost, about the fire that had nearly destroyed him, and for the first time in 11 years, he didn't feel guilty for being happy, didn't feel like he was betraying their memory by building a new life. They would want this for him. He knew that now. They would want him to love again, to laugh again, to fill his house with children and friends and joy. Sarah found him standing alone. You all right? More than all right. Jack pulled her close. I was just thinking about how lucky I am, how close I came to missing all of this. What changed your mind about giving up? I mean, Jack thought about that day by Cottonwood Creek, about the sound of a baby crying, about the choice he'd made to stop instead of riding past. A tiny voice in the desert. He said finally, a child who refused to give up. She reminded me that life is worth fighting for, that there's always hope if you're brave enough to reach for it. Emma came running up breathless and laughing. Papa, come quick. Thomas is trying to catch fireflies. They walked together into the yard where their son was chasing lights in the darkness, his hands reaching for magic he couldn't quite grasp but wouldn't stop trying for, just like his father, Jack thought, just like all of them, reaching for light in the darkness, choosing hope over despair, choosing love over fear, choosing to believe that tomorrow could be better than yesterday. And sometimes, if you were very lucky and very brave, you caught hold of that light and held on tight and never let go. Jack Reeves had been given a second chance. Not because he deserved it, not because he'd earned it, but because a baby cried in the desert and he chose to answer. And that choice had made all the difference. The stars wheeled overhead, the wind whispered through the grass. And at Broken Spur Ranch, surrounded by family and friends, and Love Jackson, Reeves finally understood the truth that had eluded him for so long. Home wasn't a place. It was the people you chose to love, the people who chose to love you back, the children who called you Papa, and the woman who promised to stand by your side, and the friends who showed up when times got hard. That was home. That was family. That was everything that mattered. And it was enough. More than enough. It was everything he'd ever need. The end.